You know how they did the thing on the thing? It actually works. It goes.
Are we starting?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey!
It's your boy, Ashton. I'm going to be the new host.
I am the host. You're a co-host. Okay. All right.
Are we going to make that the intro?
No! Okay, are you ready to actually start? Everyone has a journey they are walking. And along that road, we are met with potholes, road bumps, rain, storms, and sometimes just fog. But through it all, we're really just looking for one thing: clarity. Clarity so we can walk with confidence in that next step. There's one source I run to for that clarity. In the darkest of nights, Jesus offers me light that shines through even the thickest storms. Welcome to the Clairity Podcast, where we find clarity through the one who saves us all. And welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Clairity Podcast. I'm your host, Claire Staples, by the way. And this is our new co-host.
Hi. My name is Ashton Staples.
I'm Ashton Staples.
My name is Ashton Staples. And I am Claire's husband. We got married. Okay. Congrats.
We got endless amounts of questions when we decided to get married. And so we wanted to do an episode all about us. That sounds a little prideful. But we just wanted to do an episode that shares our story. And then we're just going to hop on here and talk about like our plans for Season 2 of the Clairity Podcast. So most of our questions that we're answering today actually come directly from you guys, people who sent us DMs or comments or whatever. We're going to answer all your questions today. And a lot of people actually are always like, Claire, we want to know, did you ever get well? Did you ever heal? What happened to the missionary? Everybody's always like, we want to hear more about the missionary. So I guess this is a follow-up episode of us. So you guys now get to find out what happened to the missionary. So it's just going to be super fun today, super laid back. So let's start with the first question that people always ask us, which is, how did you guys meet? Do you want to start with this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after I woke up to the church and everything that's going on, then we are proposed with the question, where do you go and what will you do?
What do you do?
And so I just start going to work.
None of us know.
None of us know. We're just like
none of us.
Okay, well, we learned all these things. Is the world going to end? And then it was April 2024 where that eclipse happened, and I thought that the world was going to end. And then it didn't. And then I was like, okay, well, now what do we do and where do we go again? So I just go to work and start working and stuff. And then I moved to Alabama because I had a good job opportunity there.
Here's a question. Was it easy for you when you came home off your mission? Like, what were your emotions when you got home off your mission because now you're the apostate missionary? Like, what the heck was going through your head?
Right, okay, so back it up there. That makes sense. So I get off my mission and I'm just trying to do things like, okay, well, I guess I'll start going to work because we have to keep moving. We can't just give up, you know? And so I'm just driving to work every day, going to provide for this family that I'm hoping to get one day, you know?
But it's also in this place of like the NuMo. We don't like titles, but the NuMo sphere, it's like, who actually is like us that we could get married to, because
Right.
it's such a small little community.
Yep.
So you start to lose hope.
Right. And so I just keep doing I'm 20, so I can make a living for myself and I have time to think about this. And so I'm just continuing to do things, but I'm in this headspace of, well, now all I see is negativity because everything sucks. all the stuff I had going for me is kind of gone, for the most part. And everything's all weird, especially with temple marriage. Eternal marriage was always one of the greatest things that I wanted to, like, greatest blessings that Jesus had for me that I was always looking forward to. But so then I'm in this space where it's like, well, I have to find the right person for that to even be a thing.
So Ashton's home from the mission, dealing with all the stuff he's dealing with. Pretty sure he was hoping the world would just end. And then I am newly single again after another failed relationship. Why? Because I left the church. And I'm like, I'm going to start this podcast, and who knows what's going to happen, because we tend to get persecution when we stand in this place. So then we originally met because a mutual friend in one of the online communities that I know you guys are all familiar with, he reached out to me, reached out to Ashton, was like, you guys should start a channel together because you're both alike. There were more words than that. So actually me and Ashton's first interaction was on March 5th of 2024. So pretty early in the year. We talked like twice on a Zoom call, and then we never talked again for months. Like, it was that long. He thought the world was ending on April 5th. And he told me on our first call, he's like, I could never date anybody because the world is ending in April.
It's April. Was it?
What day was it?
4/8. That's when the eclipse was.
Oh, okay.
April 8th or something.
Okay, well,
I
whatever
thought it was going to be
was.
around there because of the eclipse or whatever. I was just hoping that it would, because I was like, man, this is all disappointing and there's so much evil in the world. Let's just get on with this, you know?
So I'm thinking, he's thinking the world is ending, and I'm thinking I'm going to start my podcast. So with starting the podcast opens a whole lot of doors to meeting all kinds of people, which was awesome. So what date was it when you finally, I guess let's start with what made you decide to ask me out in the first place? We're talking about months. So you guys know that we did a podcast together. Neither of us knew. I'm literally thinking he's like this little brother figure in my life.
What? Hey.
I was like, he's just this kid and we're going to do this cute little podcast. And then it blew up because his points on the podcast were fantastic.
And the thumbnail helped.
I was very impressed with like his knowledge of scripture. I was like what? But then we moved on because again, neither of us had that in our heads that this would happen. So you tell your part now.
I'll answer this. So it kind of goes along with my long drawn out story. Basically, I'm in this place and I'm disappointed. And I'm just like, well, where can I find someone who agrees with me on these things? Because I still believe the Book of Mormon is the word of God. I mean, this is what brought me to Jesus mostly. But once again, I don't agree with any of these things that are happening in this church. I believe that there is so much corruption, so I can't align with those. But many of the Christians nowadays, which nothing against people who follow Jesus, but they also just think that because of what the church does, that the Book of Mormon is this evil book. And I'm like, whoa. And so I don't want to give up the Book of Mormon. And so we're like I know there's a lot of you out there who feel this way as well. And so I don't want to give this up. And so I'm just thinking, where am I going to find a Christian who's going to just believe in the Book of Mormon and then not go to church and not give tithing to corrupt churches as well? And I'm just like, so I'm just like, well, I'll just focus on work and I'll get it done and just, it'll work out. And so I was really sad a lot and very disappointed. You guys all know what it's like, And so I moved to Alabama, just continuing on the career path. I found a good opportunity and whatever. And I go church hopping. Like I go from church to church trying to find people that will maybe drive with me. End of the story. I don't find anyone. So I just continue on. And so how did I meet her? I'm in this place.
How did you get the idea in your head that you should suggest that we date? Because we're talking about months, like March to July. Like
it's a long time.
Yeah.
And so I'm having success in my job, right? But every day that I come home, I was just starting to think, and the Lord was humbling more and more, and he was telling me this, and I got to the point where I was just pacing around in my living room. I was just pacing around, and my impression, which I believe that the Lord told me this as well, is that none of this matters unless you are working towards helping the people in your life, right? When it comes to family and friends and community. And so I had all this success. I had a really great opportunity, but none of it matters unless I was doing what God wanted me to do when it comes to the people in my life. And for me personally, that is getting married and starting a family with someone who believes as I do. And so I was always under the impression that this long distance stuff is so weird and cringy. It's like feels weird to ask someone you never seen, like, hey, do you want to date? And so I was like, well, I guess that takes everyone I know in this space out of the picture because I live in a different state. And so we were going to do our channel together, but I thought it'd be awkward if we did it together, but I had feelings for her and she didn't for me. And then it's like, well, would we want to continue? And so that's why I had to ask her before we started it, and it worked out.
Okay, so all these things were happening, and in the meantime, I'm dating all these dudes that are awake. And by dating, I just mean getting to know, going on dates, trying to figure out, like, who do I marry? Like, why is this so hard to figure out? And feeling pretty confused. Like, what do I pick? And so it was like about 3 days before he suggested that we date. I got down on my knees and I was just so frustrated. I just had tears. Just, Lord, I have been dating for so long and I'm so sick of it. And so whoever, if there is somebody out there for me, like, please ignite his heart for me. The person you have for me, ignite his heart for me, because I don't want to do this anymore. And, you want to tell the next part of the story?
And so that same very day was the day that I had that feeling the strongest, was none of this matters. It was where I didn't care about anything, tangible in this life. I didn't care about it anymore because it didn't matter to me unless I was doing what God wanted me to do. And so that was about that same day that same day she said that prayer was 3 days before the Zoom call that we had about starting this channel. And so that was the same day that she said the prayer. And so this was completely an act of God. And so that between those 3 days where I already knew we had this Zoom call scheduled, I was like, okay, I'll just ask her then. It'll be no pressure. I'll say, it doesn't, if you don't want to, it's okay. We'll just keep doing what we're doing, right? But for those 3 days, because I know it's kind of makes it harder when you start to get feelings for someone. You haven't even really talked to them like this. You're just like, be cool. Don't fall in love. I was here working these 10 or 12 hour shifts. Like, don't fall in love. Don't fall in love. You don't even know her. You're good.
Okay, so we get on the Zoom call and I'm thinking we're just going to plan this channel together. Like, okay. And then at the end of the call, he's like, I need to ask you something. And I was like, all right. Still totally oblivious. And he's like, we have a lot in common and we have similar background. And I thought maybe we could date or something. And I was like, what? That's not what I expected him to say.
Mm-hmm. And so after I asked that,
so I just casually said, sure.
No, this is what happened. She said, yes, I would love to. That's literally what you said.
That is what I said.
She's trying to downplay it,
I
guys.
didn't for some reason, it just exploded out of me. This yeah. I don't even know why. Mm-hmm. Well, I do now, but at the moment I was just like, yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. And so long distance makes zero sense to me. So I was like, if we're going to date and get married, I'm going to just move to where she is. Because she has all this going for her, right?
Same day he made the call.
Right.
First of all, I asked him, I was like, how long has it been since you started considering this? And he's like, about 3 days ago. And I was like, what? And so then same day he texts me and he's like, I can come down this particular weekend. Does this weekend work for you? And I was like, sure. And he's like, okay, my plane ticket is booked. And I was like, that was really fast. We're talking 20 minutes after he offered. I'm like, whoa, he's dead serious. He's dead serious. This isn't a joke. He actually wants to be with me. Who would want that? I was just blown out of the water. And I told my mom and she was like, who is this random dude? Who's flying out to Utah for you? I was like, it's Ashton. And so that was the beginning of us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so my plan was to get do 3 plane trips before I decide for sure that I would move out here.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 3 plane trips. Yeah, y'all are going to find out that didn't happen either.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward so it was about 2 weeks between the call.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks out.
And we were just texting each other. I feel like we didn't even text each other that much. That's what's funny. We text each other a little bit in those 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, in the 2 weeks, right?
So then he gets on a plane, flies to Utah. He's scheduled to be in Utah for Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday morning. That's it. Okay. Short visit.
Gotta go to work. You gotta go to work on Monday to pay off that
Okay. So
$800 plane ticket.
oh yeah. That's the other thing. I'm like thinking he paid a few $100, and later he's like, I paid $800 for this plane ticket. I was
But
like,
it's okay.
probably
So
his most
it counted.
expensive
It's okay.
first date he's ever had. And so gets on a plane, flies to Utah. Jacob Isbell drove him to my house.
That was fun.
Thanks, Jacob, for making this happen. Which was cool because I met Jacob in person for the first time too. So that was pretty sweet. All right. First impressions when you first met me. What were your first impressions of me? I thought you were awkward.
I'm always awkward at first,
He is.
as you guys can tell.
He's so awkward.
My first impressions. Well, my first impressions were when I watched your podcast a lot. I studied up. I do my homework, and so like I watched a lot of the earlier ones where it's her talking about stuff, and that was a lot of my first impressions. So my first impressions were really just like, wow, she's really the person that I view her to be from gathering all this information. She's the person that she says she is, and she's wonderful. That's my first impression.
Aw, that's sweet.
But I'm just really
I thought you were
awkward.
so awkward. We'd like, Jacob Isbell gets out of his car and he gives me like this huge bear hug. And so then like you get out of the car and I felt like we had to hug and it was like this awkward like first hug.
Well, because I'm never one to initiate hugs all that much because I'm like, are you a hugger? Is it weird? I don't know. Like
I'm not, like I'm really not. But then
and
like
so we could put
I
it
was
on
like-
here, but our first picture together, we're
know,
like
we're
so
like-
far away.
We're like not touching each other.
Oh, that's how it was. Yeah, we weren't touching each other.
But actually we were like this closely. It was so funny. Okay.
But anyways, yes.
'Kay.
So we met.
So first evening together, we just talked. Like I was blown away by like how much we could just talk, and we didn't run into any like thing to argue about, which is pretty like that sounds kind of ridiculous, but every dude, it's like, oh well, there's always one thing that like, oh, this is really, let's fight about this.
Right.
And we just nerded out about church stuff and about the world and what's going on in it, and things God has taught us, and
life plans like homeschooling, homesteading,
yep, definitely
family life.
Yep, our views on family life. And then we have that porch swing that you guys see in the intro of every episode, and Ash was like, "It's the porch swing," and we sat on the porch swing together, and we just rocked on that swing and talked for probably hours. And I think like that's when I really started to like have feelings. That sounds so early, but I was like,
It was later than me.
this is amazing. I was like, this is amazing. Like just how smoothly everything flowed between us. It was pretty powerful. Just the energy of alignment, I would say. So next day comes, we go on our first date. We went up the canyon. I told him he breaks all my rules because I never go up the canyon with guys.
It seems kind of sketchy.
It is
I was like,
sketchy.
isn't that kind of sketchy? Well, I mean, I'm not going to do anything. And
No. So I knew his spirit was good. So I was like, oh, this is good. It'll give us a chance to talk when we go on a hike. So we went on a hike. And
got to tell the hand holding story. That's kind of funny.
okay. Well,
Are we going to tell that?
yeah, sure.
Okay, good.
we
It's
went on
funny.
this hike and it was great because we really talked about, past, present, and future, what we would like to see in the future. I think that was really the beginning of our courtship. And a few things I appreciate about you is that he was just honest from the beginning about like everything in his life. And that really hit me that like, not too many guys are just super open and honest. What about you? What touched you about me?
Well, it's kind of the same thing. And so this whole time, this has to do the hand holding story. So when I'm doing these things, I'm like very in my head about it. And I'm just analyzing everything. I'm just like, this is too good to be true. Let's keep searching. Let's see if this is all what it seems like it's going to be. And I'm just finding that conversation after conversation. And so we're just walking through this, we're kind of taking this hike, and I'm just in my own world, just like talking with her about all these things that I think and believe and that we're aligned on, and just having these conversations. And so that's what really I loved about you, especially in the beginning, was that we could talk about all these things. And it's like, it wasn't like I was trying to force anyone to listen. It's like we both were equally enthusiastic about these things.
Mm-hmm. So then he gets to the point where he's like starts talking about us, and I was like, we start talking about logistics. Like, he's in Alabama, I'm in Utah, and then finally I was like, wait, we should talk about feelings. Like, what? Like, this is going crazy fast. I've only known him for a day. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we talk about feelings. He gives me this long speech about how he feels about me. And I don't know what he said. I don't remember. You want to tell him what I did?
Okay. Yeah. So we're like, let's talk about feelings first. And so I tell my whole long speech about how I feel about her. And I later learned that she didn't hear anything I said. Even it was going in one ear and right out the other. Because she was doing this with her hand while we were walking, like trying to get me to grab
it. You make it sound so dramatic.
And I'm just like trying to think, because I'm so thinky. And then so I say, that's what I think about you. And then you answer, and you're just
I was like, oh, you want to know like how I feel about you? That's what I said. And you were like, yeah. And
then you said, I like you. And grabs my hand, and I'm like, oh my gosh, a girl's holding my hand.
The thing is, you were so like innocent and pure, and just, I didn't want to freak you out by making a move like that. And you were also so awkward. Like, it was so funny. But actually, I loved that, because every dude, he tries so hard to be smooth, and I just don't care about being smooth. I loved that he was just himself. He was himself. He didn't have to be smooth. He totally caught my attention with his awkwardness, because I knew he was just being real and genuine. Mm-hmm. And so I really liked that. So we did that. And really just the rest of the day, everything just clicked. And I think my overarching feeling at the end of the day was just peace. I had so much peace. And this was after we talked about, he was like, I think I'm going to come visit you 2 more times, and then I'm going to move to Utah, and I'm going to be prepping to move to Utah. And I just felt so much peace, even though that's crazy. We don't know each other. But I felt so much peace just about like the whole day.
Right. And same thing here is that, like, people say, well, yeah, there's peace and then there's butterflies. And if all you feel is butterflies, they're the wrong person, which I thought was crazy. But then, like, we were just spending time together, and that's what I felt was peace. I wasn't feeling like the butterfly feeling as much as I thought that I would, because I never had a girlfriend before. She's my first girlfriend. And I always had this joke on my mission that I would marry my first girlfriend. But so I guess that's cool. But I felt this peace when we were talking, and I just felt this connection that is not really explainable.
Mm-hmm. So that's my thing that I tell like young girls now is like, the guy that makes your head spin, he's not it. Like, he's not the real deal. Like, the real deal is the guy that just brings you so much peace in your core, because that's what I had. It's not that like I didn't feel romantic feelings towards him. It's that I just felt so much peace on top of like, wow, like he's just so honest and so genuine. And I fell in love with his heart from the very beginning. We did not tell each other we loved each other the first day, though, so that's good. You wanted to, didn't you? Did you?
Well, I would, but I feel like that'd be too weird and like really, really, really fast.
Yeah, that's insane.
Because it's kind of different. I feel like there's some spiritual attraction between us that kind of move things along a little quicker, but I still just didn't want to make it weird. Mm-hmm. So we waited until we got together the second time, which is what we're going to say
okay,
more.
So the next morning he gets back on his plane. I was so sad to see him go, but like at the same time, again, I felt that peace. I felt like he's going to come back. Like it's going to be okay. Oh, and he gave me a locket, which was really sweet. And I don't know when the heck he found time to buy me a locket.
We had like 2 weeks.
But like, you must have felt like something was going to go well if you bought me a locket.
Just trying to do my best.
Which was really sweet too, because we were apart for a whole month after that. And so I wore that thing, like I never took it off.
Right.
Because it felt like you were close and I wanted you to be close. So that was
so
fun.
Sweet.
Okay. So then.
So that was, I got there on August 9th. Mm-hmm. And then the story is that I was going to take 2 more plane trips. I would have been breaking even money-wise, which money wasn't the main factor. Obviously, that's a stupid reason to, but it's important. But I was also just thinking, like, this is it. Something's way too peaceful about all this. Like, this just makes too much sense. And so after I get back, I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to visit anymore. I'm moving to Utah.
So 2 days later, he hops on a Zoom call and he goes, Claire, all right, I want to talk about our timetable. And I was like, okay. And he's like, no more visits. I'm moving to Utah. And I was like, what? And he gives me his timeline. And basically a month later, he wanted to just pack up everything in his car and move to Utah.
Yep.
And I was like, you're going to find a place to live and a job and sell like your trailer and like all these things. And he was like, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And again, I felt so freaked out, but also that peace was like my guiding light because, and my dad, I went to my dad and I was like, Dad, this guy's kind of crazy. Like he really wants this to happen. And Dad was like, Claire, when you find a gem, do you just leave it there and go somewhere else? Or do you go and get it? And I was like, well, and he's like, let him do what he wants to do. And I was like, all right, okay, let's do this. So we were apart for 1 month. We just stayed in touch through phone calls and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then he moved to Utah. Mm-hmm. What day did you move?
September 9th.
September 9th. So it was exactly 1 month from his first visit. He moved to Utah, and we'd only been together in person for like 36 hours.
And so I just sold all the stuff that wouldn't fit into my tiny little Honda Civic. And then I make the 28-hour drive over to Utah, and then I'm here. So I found a stupid little apartment thingy, and I didn't have a job. He just decided. But I've done that before. I didn't have a job when I moved to Alabama. So
he did find a job. So that was good. Okay, so another thing people ask us all the time: how did we do our courtship? Like values. What did we value most? How did we navigate that? What did that look like for us? You want me to start?
Sure, I'm just thinking of how to start. Let's see.
Okay.
Courtship.
I feel like this part is mostly for like young people trying to navigate dating. Because again, it's this sense of like, okay, you left the church, okay, but we still value some things that the church taught us. Right. Okay. But there's other things that we don't anymore. And so it's navigating and exploring this new world without exploring so far that you're like going into the world of sin. And so, I think we just kind of outlined it from the very beginning, what we wanted. Mm-hmm. First thing being honesty. Like lots of people say things like, you shouldn't just don't tell everything about your life right up front, because you want them to kind of get to know you first. And we kind of did the opposite. We were just right up front. And actually that really touched my heart with him, because he was super honest with me about his past, his present, everything, and where he's at with things. And so we were able to that's how we learned that we were so aligned, I think, one of the ways. Yeah. And how I think we gained greater appreciation for each other and the things that we've had to overcome in our lives. Yep. And so that was really cool. Honesty was huge. The second thing being that like Jesus was the center of our relationship from the very beginning. Because
the gospel is so simple. When you think about it, it's pretty easy.
True.
You just do your best to come unto Jesus and have him change you. And you stop doing the bad stuff and start doing the good stuff. Like, it's true. It's pretty simple. And so we just try to keep Jesus at the center of everything that we do. Mm-hmm. And so we filter everything that we do or want to do through the lens of, is this aligning with Jesus's purposes?
Yeah. So, and we started praying together very early on. Reading scriptures together, we started that really early on. Just Jesus was the center. And then a lot of it was just time, like the time we spent together. I'm not one for any like crazy adventures and dates. I never have been. And I eat organic, so he can't even take me to dinner. But we just took time to be together. We always joked, like in that month that we were apart, that we would be completely inseparable. We literally were completely inseparable from the day he got here, because it's just like if he wasn't working, we were together.
Right.
Or if I wasn't working, we were together. Or I guess I work on the farm. So if I'm working and he's not working, we were still together. And so he just fell into place in my life. Like, it's just this beautiful, it's like a picture that you're painting. And when you start painting it, it doesn't look right. And then all of a sudden everything just like falls into place towards the end. And it's just this beautiful picture that God painted for us. Another question we actually get a lot from young people, they ask us about purity. Did you pursue purity in your relationship? And how did you do it if you did?
And our answer to that is most definitely.
Yeah.
That was one of the main things that we struggle with in this day and age, especially with our generation, is that it seems that nobody wants to do the right things anymore, especially with the most pressing issue, it seems, in today's day and age, which is the sexual revolution part 2 and the pornography issue and all these things. And so that's really important to both of us because we both value the purity in the sense. And so that was one of the main things that we agreed on and that we were so happy and relieved to agree on, because it seems that a lot of people don't.
No. The thing is, we saved ourselves for marriage, and we're not putting down anybody who is married who didn't do those things. And, you know, repentance is real. Redemption is real. I have lots of friends that they made different choices before they got married, and they're awesome. I don't have any like judgments about them or anything.
Right.
But if it comes down to I'm giving advice to a young single person who is facing the temptations in this world, save yourself for marriage.
Stay pure.
Wait for marriage. Stay pure, because like we are just so grateful that that's what we did, and it makes everything so special in a marriage, and it really makes it so there's less baggage that you have to deal with between the two of you. Right. Again, that doesn't mean people that made different choices are bad people.
Right.
But again, if you're a young single person navigating these things right now, choose purity. Like it is so much easier to choose purity.
Yep. And it helps with the honesty, because when you hide things, and if you've heard Claire's podcast, you've heard of how she had an experience where she had someone lie about a pornography addiction.
Yeah.
And we can cut this out if you don't want to share this.
No, it's fine.
But we can see how these things really hurt people.
Right.
And how that dishonesty really breaks relationships. And so honesty is really important to us. And that was something that we valued. And especially with the, when you're young and dating, you should choose to be pure, because that is the whole reason that Jesus taught all these things when he did his ministry. And through all these scriptures, they teach you to, what does it say? There's scriptural ways to say it, come out of every unclean thing, purify your vessel, that you should do these things because it really damages your spirit when you give in to temptation and do all these things. And so that's why it was really important for us to stay pure. And so then the second question that we either get or that we see people having issues with, because, life is hard to navigate. It's, how did you guys stay pure? How do you do it?
How did you do it?
How do you do it?
I think the number one thing is deal with your lust issues before you're dating.
Yes.
Like that's literally, I don't think there's any young person that doesn't have lust issues in their young years. Like we all have to overcome the flesh.
Right.
And so whatever that looks like for you, some people it's more mild, some people it's more difficult, and like everybody's story is different, but work on your issues before you start dating, and like really pursue purity as a single person, because if you can achieve that as a single person, you're going to be just fine when you're dating. That was our experience. We both had to overcome the temptations that we had to face in our personal lives. And then it was easy after that. Like I didn't have any temptation with Ashton. I don't think you did either.
No.
We just didn't
It was
have
the
any
easiest,
temptation.
most natural thing ever.
Yeah.
And we can talk more in depth about this subject, about overcoming temptation and things, especially when it comes to the pornography epidemic. Or people try to say it's a sickness, but it's an addiction, and people choose to do these things, and it's terrible for your spirit and your mind and your body. And we're going to talk a lot more about this in depth in other episodes. But really, when it comes down to it, that was always my impression too, is that you have to get yourself together and fix a lot of these major issues before you even start dating, because you're doing the person you're going to date a disservice if you still have a pornography addiction or these other addictions that are very similar, and that you should have overcome all these things through Jesus, not of your own strength, but through Jesus before you do these things, so that you can live a more stable and happy, healthy relationship.
Well, and also just creating a safe space between the two of you where you can talk about these things, because honesty is huge. Like Ashton always gave me a safe space when we were dating to ask him, do you use porn? Are you into porn? Do you have a pornography addiction? He gave me
it's not in my head. Sorry. It was this.
Is this? he always offered me a safe space. He didn't get frustrated with me. He wasn't impatient with me. He always gave me a safe space to ask questions. And because of that, like we were able to move forward quickly because honesty was established from the very beginning, and I didn't ever have to feel shame because I was afraid of being betrayed again. He never put that on me. And frankly, it was me that was putting things on him. Like, are you sure? Like I can't be betrayed. I can't be like lied to again. I can't do these things again. But he always offered me that safe space. And that's how we built trust. And then pursuing purity together actually built trust between us as well, because we both knew that we were safe with each other and that we didn't have to be afraid that we were going to cross lines. So it was easy because we both knew. And we both knew, it's like people have talked about in past episodes, your conscience knows. You know the difference between right and wrong. So follow your conscience. And so we don't, it's so simple. And now, especially in the church, let me throw that in there. It's all about getting as close to the line as you possibly can.
With the culture,
you don't need to play that game. Like it doesn't need to be there.
The unspoken culture of what we see in a lot of these people, because we've all known a lot of these people, and that's part of the culture that's taking over, not just the LDS culture with the young people. It's everywhere. Is that especially when there's some sort of like boundaries, is like, let's get as close as we can or find loopholes and do this thing because they haven't overcome the spirit of lust. It's still in them and they haven't got over it.
And it doesn't need to be that way. Like it just doesn't need to be that way. It can be so simple. And I'm sure we'll get hate for that. But for us, it was just so simple. Follow Jesus and follow the conscience that God put in you from the beginning of time. Work on your issues beforehand. These are all just basic dating advice that like I would easily give now that I know how good it can be.
And so one of the main things is that when you follow Jesus and you're doing it how you should, you'll be on the same page. But being on the same page was what made it so easy, because there was no unequal forces. There was no one person trying to pull someone this way or this way. And it's not like a battle. It was like we were both in line and we knew what we both wanted. And it was very simple.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
And again, that doesn't make us better than anybody else either.
Does not.
Like we know we're going to get hate on this video, but it doesn't.
That's where I'll put the scripture in. I'll put it on screen and I'll paraphrase it. But in Alma, he says, I'm not glorying in myself. I'm glorying in my God, because my God helped us to convert our brethren. Or the Ephesians 2 or something, where it says, this is not of works. Like we're not boasting of our works. This grace is given to us through God. And anything that we do that is good is to glorify God. And so we're not here to say, hey, we overcome the sexual sins. Like we have become perfect in the category of sexual things and doing them correctly when it comes to, lust or, especially dating, pornography, blah, 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 is that we have overcome all of these things through Jesus. And Jesus' message is that you can do that. And it's very simple. You have to come unto him and he will make it easy when it seems like it is so difficult. And so that is the gospel of Jesus Christ, is that you can do these things and it's not you, it's Jesus doing it.
Exactly.
And so saying that we have overcome and that we were perfect in these areas is not to boast. It is to say that everyone can do this.
And like, look at the glory of God. Like, it's pretty amazing what God did for this entire relationship and how much both of us overcame before we came to this place so that we were able. We talk about this all the time. How come we didn't do it earlier? Like, we met back in March. We weren't ready. We weren't ready to meet each other. And when we were ready, God let us run with it.
Right.
But we had to be ready, and it is just all God. And so, but literally every young person, I would advise them to pursue that. It's just so much better. It's so much better. I'm so grateful. But I mean, I'm 27 years old. I waited a lot of years, and there's people that are older than me that they wait even more years than that. And it's okay. Like, I'm perfectly healthy female. It did not damage me in any way to wait.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Let's move on from this topic. Okay. So next question that people give us all the time. How did you know? How did you know your person was the one? I'll let you go first and then I'll go.
All right. So first of all, it was the miracles that God showed us, especially when the day that we prayed, that she prayed, was the day that I had the idea. Everything worked out so well. You know, obviously that's not the only indicator, because when I say work out well, I'm talking about between us, right? God provided a way for it to happen. He provided a way for me to make it here. And God gave me the idea when she prayed. That was completely the Spirit. That was completely God working in our lives. And God humbling me and breaking down all my barriers and all the things, like the bitterness I had for a while after I left the church was God. That's why I needed some time to work through all these things. But God was preparing me for this time, and he was preparing her for this time, so that once we were together, we finally saw what was good about it. And let's see, what else helped me to know was obviously praying about it. And that is something that it fluctuates between the church emphasizes this, or sometimes the church does not emphasize this.
This is true.
And we have quotes about both of that.
Yes.
But that we prayed about if this was the right person, because we don't want to make choices from our heart. We want to make those ones from our heart that align with Jesus and what God wants for us. And so
yes,
that helped me a lot, was praying, and I got this peace about us. It wasn't like this, any sort of selfish motive. It wasn't any sort of anything else. I just recognized it as peace and as an answer to my prayers that she was the one.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, it was a couple of things. So first, the timing of that prayer was pretty amazing to me, that it just all like lined up. But I'm stubborn, and I have to tell God over and over again. Like, I have to check with God. You're sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And so God,
Which is good.
Yeah. So God had to tell me, like, in a lot of ways. So the next way would be that literally when he was officially here, the alignment just kept increasing. So when I was younger and I was dating, I would always talk about connection. I would always be like, oh, I have so much connection with this guy though, so he could be the one because I have connection. And I'm not downplaying the importance of connection here, but the word that I was missing was alignment. I didn't think I could find anybody that I was aligned with. And there's always going to be nitpicky things that you disagree on, but the big things, those things matter. And you do not want World War III to break out in your own home. Like, you do not want that to happen if you can avoid it.
Right. So we're not making it seem like we never argue or fight about things.
Yes.
It's just not about abominations.
But like the big things. So our views on the church, our views on the public school systems, the medical system, homeschooling versus public schooling, all of the things that are really big that you're going to end up battling about essentially over your children and your family. We were aligned on all of it. I didn't have to convince him of anything I believed. He already believed those things. And it also puts us in a place too where we realize, because people say this to us a lot, well, you're going to change over the years. And we know that, but we're grateful that we get to grow and change together. And hopefully keep that alignment, because it seems to have been a theme from the very beginning, in that we can grow and change together. And I'm not saying couples that aren't aligned in the beginning can't do that either. There's lots of couples that overcome the craziest of things because they have love, and love is very powerful. I'm just really grateful for the alignment that we have, though, because I Like that's what I wasn't finding in all of the other people that I was getting to know, is that alignment. But then there's one more thing, okay, that was huge for me. So if you guys watched my first podcast about, well, I guess there was the one I did with Jamie Carter, where I talked about how God told me that he was going to give me beauty for ashes. After I called my wedding off, God promised me he was going to give me beauty for ashes. And so
this was your podcast episode where
Yes.
Jamie interviewed you.
Jamie interviewed me.
Okay.
I can link that in the description as well. So here's the dates here. So July 26th of 2024 is when Ashton decided to ask me. Basically, he was like, we should date. That's when he initiated this thing between us. And July 26th, 7 years before that, exactly on the date, is the day that I called my wedding off. Okay. 7 is the number of wholeness and completeness. It's the number of healing. And it's like I felt God telling me that his work of me healing and all the things I needed to learn, like, it's finished. And now you're going to move on. And I'm going to give you something beautiful as a replacement. And so...
Or handsome.
Yes.
Sorry, I just made it all silly. Keep going.
And so exactly like to the date that I called my first wedding off, Ashton stepped in. Exactly 7 years. And that work has been finished and that door is closed. That book, that chapter is closed. And now we get to create this beautiful story between the two of us, that God has given us this beautiful relationship. And it's exactly what God promised me. It's beauty for ashes. I felt so broken 7 years ago. Like just this big pile of dirt, and God gave me tenfold of what I ever could have dreamed of. And so that's how I knew. When I finally calculated those dates and I was thinking about what God had done here, I knew. And it's been beautiful. All right. You want to talk about engagement? Okay. So we got engaged. Do you know the date that we got engaged?
I think it was October 21st.
Okay. So
Ish.
How long had we been dating? Like a month and a half?
Yeah. So it was about a month and a half of dating. So that was like, once I moved here, we officially started dating. And then we said, I love you. And then we officially became boyfriend, girlfriend. That was September 9th or whatever. And then about a month and a half, late October was an engagement. And then a month and a half later, like December 14th, we got married.
We got married. So,
yeah.
Again, like being engaged was really hard. Like, oh my goodness, guys, if you want to talk about spiritual warfare, if you're about to do something the demons do not want you to do, they're going to try and stop you. I cannot, like, so many times I was like, are you sure we're doing the right thing? Because not like it wasn't that between us anything was wrong, but it was that everything around us like exploded, and everything we tried to do for the wedding, like it went wrong. Up to the day before the wedding, there were still things going wrong, like so many things going wrong. And I had so much anxiety about the craziest of things. And I just know that Satan was trying to get in the way.
Yep.
But we just had to keep pursuing what we knew God wanted us to pursue. And we did. I think I doubled down on praying and study, and like we doubled down on praying together because everything was so hard. Everything around us exploded. Like we literally were left to find a photographer 2 weeks before the wedding. I was like calling up photographers like, hey, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. And they're like, it's Christmas time, not available. So shout out to Caden Knighting for finding us a photographer.
Yeah, he really helped us.
Yeah, no kidding. So just so many things. But God still dropped everything into place.
But that was the thing, is I was like, even if our venue explodes, we're still gonna get married in that field.
Exactly. We'll
because
just get married
you're the
outside.
one, and now's the time, and this is God's work, and nothing can stop it. So
yeah, so we just held on for dear life, and oh my goodness, I was like, so many times I was like, am I doing the wrong thing? Because holy cow, I feel like everything is exploding, like everything. but we
there's
just
a
kept going.
concept in that, is that when you're going to do something that is good and that God wants you to do, you're going to find opposition unless you're in Zion or something. You're going to have opposition. Think about all these people in the scriptures. They always get rocks thrown at them. You know, that's the same thing. When you're about to do something that God wants you to do and that Satan and his forces do not want you to do, it's going to get hard because they don't want you to do it. And that's what we learned in detail during that time.
In great detail.
And we still experience that. Like, we get a lot of pushback from this podcast, and it's not just physical, it's like spiritual too. And so, but we're just going to keep doing it because we're not going to have the fear of man. We're going to have the fear of God.
And God delivered us. Like it was fine. Like we still were able to get married. We still solved all the problems. Literally a week and a half before, I'm thinking, I don't have a photographer. I don't have this fell apart. This exploded. Oh my goodness. Like this wedding's going to be disastrous. And it still like all came together and it was beautiful. So, people ask us this all the time. How did you get married? How do you get married in this space? Because we did not get married in the Manti Temple. Sorry, guys. So that was the other thing, is we really wanted a wedding centered on Jesus and centered on all of the things that we valued and all the things that had brought us together. And so everything had symbolism in our wedding, everything, starting with our rings. So our rings. So first of all, Ashton picked a ring. You can't see it on camera, but this is my ring. And so first of all, it has the infinity band, and that symbolizes that we intend to be married for eternity. And we know that that's a debated topic in this community, but I still believe in eternal marriage. I don't believe that it has anything to do with the temple. So first we have the infinity band, and then, my band is still another just infinity eternity band. Okay, so, and it still symbolizes that our marriage is going to be sealed up by the Holy Spirit of promise. And we felt like that was really important to keep that theme of eternity and forever, because God did this. There's no way he's going to just tear it apart someday.
Yep, and that's what we believe in.
So we did that, and then we decided we wanted to be married with the backdrop of a cross. So we had a big cross built for us.
And now we have a cross in our living room. So it's awesome.
Which is kind of cool. But we had
like 6 feet tall.
We had a big cross built for us, and we draped red. And well, first of all, we draped a white cloth over it to represent that we worship the living God, that Jesus is alive in us and in this world. And so he's not on the cross. He's not dead. He's alive and well. Yep. And then we draped red and white roses across the cross to symbolize that verse, though your sins be as scarlet, they may be as white as snow, because that represents us and what God did for us in cleansing us of all the things that we were really struggling with that would have kept us from each other. So we just really, it was just a symbol of God making all things new in both of our lives. Yep. Really feeling like all things new. Jay Ford says to us all the time, we're like phoenixes rising from the ashes. It's true, because like everything just seemed like a mess until God did this in our lives. Right. So we did that.
And how else we navigated the non-temple wedding is, and we can go in doctrinal breakdowns of this, or you can see many historical breakdowns about what Joseph and Hiram said about the subject. And but we still believe that when you're married, if you do it unto the Lord, and there's scriptures for this too, is that what God's going to join together, he's not going to tear apart. And so we believe that we must be joined together by God. And just how it works with salvation is that you come unto Jesus and he seals you his because you want to follow him. And he lays out how to do it, and he's going to seal you his. And it's not something that some guy can do for you. Jesus is the keeper of the gate, and he doesn't employ any servants there. And so we believe that it is the same thing with marriage, in that has nothing to do with your salvation. Your salvation is between you personally and God. But if you guys are both going to make it to the same place, we don't believe there's any purpose in tearing that apart. And so that was a big part of our ceremony, and that we wanted it to be centered on Jesus and our commitments to each other, and to never leave Jesus and to never leave each other. And that was we got married civilly, but we also, her father Bob Dalton. That guy's awesome. He was the one who married us. He got some marriage license or certificate thing on the internet.
You can go online and get a license to marry people so easily, guys.
I might do it if any of you guys want to get married by me. I'll do it. But
I would recommend somebody older in your life that aligns with what you believe to marry you, because that's what we did, and that's why we picked Dad.
Yeah, and so he married us civilly, but he also married us as a minister of Jesus Christ, because we want to be married in the eyes of God. And so that was the big part about our ceremony.
Yeah, and we really focused on our ceremony being centered on Christ and being sealed up to him. And our intention is to be sealed up by the Holy Spirit of promise, because when we are sealed his, we will be sealed together because we are married. That's what marriage is.
And I could do a doctrinal breakdown of my opinions on this. And obviously I don't want to start contentions. Like, I'm still friends with everyone, but like before this fallen earth, when God made Adam, he said, "It is not good that man shall be alone." And so then he created women so that we could be one in one flesh. And so that was just a major part of our journey.
Yeah. And so that's what we did. And it was all centered on Christ. We wrote our own vows. I thought it was beautiful. It was actually amazing how well we did not like share our vows with each other. We kind of outlined a little bit, like, all right, like first part, something about us when we first met, something that we love about each other, and then our promises to each other. We pretty much outlined it like that, and it aligned kind of amazingly, actually. It was beautiful. And then just shout out to all the people who made the wedding possible. I am so grateful for this community. It's really this beautiful community of people who have come out of the church and are being persecuted all the time for this choice, that all of you guys who were involved in my wedding, you really pulled through. And we are so, so grateful. Shout out to like Kate and Benjamin Coriats from the Book of Mormon Review channel. They flew out from Virginia. Kate was my bridesmaid. Benjamin was our videographer. Caden pulled through for us when it comes to photos, helping Benjamin with videography. He had to snag some tablecloths for us last minute on the day of, and he did that too. Shout out to Kaylin Wynn. Kaylin is just a beautiful spirit. She did a beautiful job of our flowers and decor.
And she was the one that helped us make the cross.
Oh,
it
yeah.
looks really good.
Yeah, so she did amazing. I'm so grateful to her and all her help.
We still have the flowers that we draped on the cross.
Yep, really good. And Jamie Carter, who like
taught us how to dance. We were so bad. Oh my gosh.
We did not know how to dance, and Jamie taught us how to dance, and then she kept me sane on the wedding day. The morning of, I finally felt so much peace. Oh my goodness. After all this chaos, I felt so much peace. And it was so funny because Kate and Jamie were my bridesmaids, so they were getting ready with me. They were like, "We barely slept last night." And I was like, "I slept fantastic." And I was not sleeping before, like at all. And so, but they kept me sane for the whole day, and they just made everything happen that I couldn't be doing because I was the one getting married. So huge shout out to them, and just my parents, holy cow, all that they went through with us to keep us sane. And Mom made all the cookies for the reception, and then all the people that came and supported us. I'm just blown away. This podcast has been a miracle in my life for so many reasons, because it's brought us these people who were just loving and supporting us in our relationship. And I didn't know most of you guys until this year. So I'm just so grateful to this community. Our wedding was beautiful, and we're just so grateful to be together and that it's finally here, and that we feel delivered from all of that Satan was trying to throw at us. And so it's been amazing. And our story is not over. Like, it's just barely begun. I could give marriage advice, but we've only been married for like 2 weeks. So I'm not the one to give that advice.
I don't know. I think our advice is pretty good.
All right.
I mean, most of it's straight from the scriptures. So
we always say to each other, you just got to get good.
You just gotta get good.
You just got to get good. Every time we argue, we're like, you just got to get good. So
we're just like, how do we do this? And I'm just like, just got to get good.
You just got to get good.
Just do it.
So, no, we're not perfect. We still fight. We
had our first really big argument the other day about a clock.
Because he bought a really ugly clock. Okay. I just didn't want an ugly clock, but he wanted a clock that was quiet. So anyway, the point is that
We still love each other.
Yes.
And we didn't
we
throw
do.
the clock at each other. And it's actually still hanging up. So.
It's true. And really the whole thing is that like we know we're so naive to the marriage thing right now, and we're just happy to be together, and we know that life is going to throw whatever it throws at us, and we're looking forward to facing it together. And
But at the end of the day, we have a solid foundation.
yes, and we want to face everything that comes our way in faith in Christ, and that's kind of our goal. And we're still navigating this space being again, we don't like titles, but for lack of a better description, this NuMo space of being out of the church, but loving the Book of Mormon still. It's still something we're navigating. We'll be navigating it with our future children. We are just new to this, and we're just excited for whatever life has to throw at us. And we have so much more to learn. And I'm like, I tell them all the time, I'm like, I learned so much when I was single and I'm tired. But the reality is that we have so much more to learn, but we're excited to face it together. So, okay. So let's transition a little bit. We want to talk about plans for the podcast. This is season 2. Okay. This is exciting. we
put applause
created
soundtracks
about
in the back.
50. I think I have that button actually.
Wait, you do? You're kidding. What? Does that record it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're keeping this. Keep it rolling. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, what were we saying?
We recorded 50 episodes of the Clairity Podcast in 2024, which is so exciting. 50 in 1 year. That's a lot. Holy cow. I've met so many beautiful people. It's been so fun. So this year, we're going to keep doing the same thing. We want to keep sharing people's stories, but we're also going to be adding shorter videos of me and Ashton kind of coming on and talking about things within scripture that
or life or anything
that just helps to wake people up a little more, to shine light in this world that is really dark. And we want to just share thoughts that have been on our hearts and minds with you guys. And we'll just be sharing little things that hopefully you can share with your family and loved ones that will help them to feel light in their life and to help wake them up a little bit. There's so many things going on in the world, and we talk about this all the time. It's so negative, and there has to be like a way
balance
to combat. There has to be a way to combat and to balance all the horrible things that are going on in the world. And so we'll just share the things that we're doing to combat these things and where our beliefs come from, which are cored in the scriptures. And so we'll just be hopping on and sharing little things like that too.
And so like there's different things that we'll share. Like obviously it's still important to point out things that are happening that are bad, but it's also really, it's easy to get too like focused on that, but we have to talk about life after leaving any sort of corruption, but living in Jesus and living in joy. And moving on and doing good everywhere and kind of finding joy again, things like that. Talk about maybe things that are going on.
Yes.
I think we want to start, I'll just call it the Psalm chapter 150 series. It's basically just going to be like, we'll just have fun with music, right? Music that points people to Jesus, just anything. And it'll just be on a spare time. Like it could be a lot or a little. Yes. But we're still going to keep the interviews going.
Yes, definitely.
And so that's what we were going to do with our channel. And we just figured let's just join it all together.
Yep.
Because you can never post too much.
So it will all be here on the Clairity Podcast. And we also have a Clairity Podcast Instagram page now. I have been running it through the Forged in His Fire page, and we just upgraded that. So the Instagram page is now the Clairity Podcast. That's Clairity spelled
right here,
CLAIRITY. Clairity. Okay. So you can find us on Instagram, and it's actually Benjamin from the channel Book of Mormon
He's
Reviews.
our editor.
He's our editor. Shout out to Benjamin. We
Shout
love
out to
you.
Book of Mormon Reviews as well.
Go watch their channel. It's awesome. So we will be posting all of our shorts to Instagram. Please hop onto Instagram and give us some support, our NuMo community, because man, there's a lot of haters on there.
There's a lot of haters. Don't get caught up in it. I think it's kind of funny sometimes. But still support us.
Please support us
in
our mission.
Reach out to people.
Yeah. So, and then just huge shout out to everybody supporting us. And the other thing is we know that you guys are really excited about our relationship and our marriage. And The biggest thing is that we're just new to all this and we're learning too. So we hope to bring you guys light. But I think back to Julie Sanyameni's episode where she said with people, you have to go no pedestals and no pits. So guys, we don't want you to put us on a pedestal. Anything we say on this podcast, go and pray for yourself and find out from God personally what's right and what's not and what works in your life, because
don't idolize us like we're just people
no,
trying to do what Jesus
we're
says.
This really adorable couple here, but but you don't need to put us on a pedestal because we're just learning here too. And no pits. There will be times that we will say things you don't like, and please give us grace. Okay. And there's so many haters out there, and we know what we're facing on this podcast, but we're not going to stop. We're going to follow Jesus. To all the haters on Instagram that are watching us,
we love you.
We love you and we love Jesus, and we're not going to stop sharing our message. So you can hate all you want. We're not going to stop.
And even if we disagree very strongly, I still have nothing against.
Yeah, we're just going to keep going the best we can and be the voice for Jesus. God is good. The world is really dark, and we have our struggles in dealing with the darkness, but we want to try and bring light and knowledge to whatever we can in whatever way we can. So thank you guys for supporting us, supporting this podcast, and stay tuned for all the awesome things that we have coming at you this year. Thanks, guys. If you guys are interested in coming on the podcast and sharing your story of how you've left mainstream religion, particularly the LDS Corporation, to follow Jesus Christ, please feel free to reach out to me at clarity.podcast@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram now and Facebook at the Clairity Podcast. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us on this week's episode of the Clairity Podcast.
Thank you.